The lights in the great hall of Axiom Prime dimmed as 1,200 delegates took their seats. The chamber was enormous, built by species that had traveled between stars when humans were still living in caves. Crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling that showed the real-time movement of galaxies. The air itself was filtered to accommodate 100 different breathing requirements. Admiral stood near the back of the human section, her dress uniform pressed and perfect. Beside her, Doctor checked her translation device for the third time. They were the only two humans in a room full of ancient beings, and both of them knew exactly how little their species mattered here. "They gave us seats near the exit," whispered. "That tells you everything." Nodded but said nothing. She had read the intelligence reports. She knew what was coming. The Dominion had finally moved and the galaxy was about to burn. High Arbiter floated to the central platform. He was a being made of light and crystal that had existed for 9,000 years. His voice echoed through the chamber without any visible mouth. "They have crossed the neutral boundary," announced. "They have destroyed the listening posts they have seized the mining colonies in the Thresh system. Their fleet numbers 16,000 warships. They are coming." The chamber erupted in noise. 100 species shouted in 100 languages. Fear filled the room like smoke. Commander, a warrior with 4 arms and skin like gray stone, slammed his fist on his podium. "We must meet them at the border, full strength. Show them the consortium will not bend." Many delegates roared in agreement. They were proud. They had never retreated in their entire history. Their word for surrender did not exist. Raised a limb of pure light. "The mathematics do not favor us. Our combined fleet is 5,000 ships. They outnumber us 3 to 1. A direct engagement would result in total destruction." "Then we die with honor," shouted. "Honor does not protect civilians," a soft voice replied. Every eye in the chamber turned to the back, where Admiral had stepped forward. She was small compared to most species present. Her black hair was tied back simply. She looked like nothing special at all. Commander laughed. "The infant species wishes to speak. What wisdom could humans possibly offer? You have been in space for barely 200 years. You are children playing with toys you do not understand." Did not react to the insult. Her face remained calm. "I request permission to present an alternative strategy." High Arbiter studied her with ancient eyes. Humans were a curiosity to the Council. They had joined the consortium only 12 years ago, a blink of an eye in galactic terms. They had contributed nothing significant. They were tolerated, not respected. "You may have 5 minutes," said. His tone suggested he expected nothing useful. Walked to the central platform. Every step echoed in the sudden silence. Doctor followed, carrying a small projection device. "Display Tactical Scenario 7, said quietly. A hologram appeared above the platform. It showed the known galaxy, with territory marked in red and consortium space in blue. The red was spreading like a disease. "They are strong," began. "Their ships are powerful. Their numbers are vast. A direct battle would destroy us. Commander is correct about one thing: if we fight them head-on, we will die." Nodded smugly. "So you agree, we face death either way, better to die fighting." "I did not say we should die," replied. "I said we should not fight them head-on." She touched the hologram and the display changed. Now it showed arrows and movements, a complex dance of fleet positions. "This is Operation Distant Thunder. We do not meet thee at the border. We fall back. We give them the frontier systems. We let them advance." The chamber exploded with outrage. Delegates screamed in dozens of languages. Observer, a diplomat with silver skin and large dark eyes, leaned forward with interest, but most others looked ready to attack physically. "You suggest we abandon our colonies?" asked, his light flickering with what might have been shock. "You suggest we surrender without fighting?" "I suggest we retreat," said calmly. "Retreat and surrender are different things. Surrender means giving up. Retreat means choosing where to fight. Cowardice, roared, human cowardice. This is why your species will never matter. Turned to face him directly. Commander, how many wars has your species fought? Straightened proudly. They have engaged in 37 major conflicts across our history. We have never lost. Humans have fought over 15,000 wars, said quietly, against ourselves. The chamber fell silent. We have spent our entire existence trying to kill each other, continued. We have used swords, guns, bombs, and weapons that poisoned our own world. We have made every mistake possible. We have lost millions upon millions of our own people to violence. She paused, letting her words sink in. And in all that death, we learned something. We learned that the army that wins is not always the strongest. The army that wins is the one that chooses the battlefield. The army that wins is the one that makes the enemy fight where they are weakest. Doctor stepped forward. Your species fight wars of pride. You meet strength with strength. You see retreat as shameful. Humans see retreat as a tool, nothing more, nothing less. They are powerful, said, but they have one weakness. They are arrogant. They believe they cannot lose. If we run, they will chase us. They will push deeper and deeper into our territory. Their supply lines will stretch. Their ships will need fuel, food, ammunition. And they will not stop because their pride will not let them stop. She changed the hologram again. Now it showed supply routes, thin lines stretching across hundreds of light years. We have spent the last 6 years mapping their logistics. We know every supply depot, every fuel station, every convoy route. We give them the frontier. We let them think they are winning. And when they are deep in our territory, fat and confident and far from home, we cut them off. High Arbiter floated closer. You would attack their supplies instead of their fleet. An army without food cannot fight, said. An army without fuel cannot move. The fleet is mighty, but it is also hungry. We will starve them. Observer raised a silver hand. This plan requires sacrifice. The frontier colonies would be occupied. Civilians would suffer. His expression flickered with pain just for a moment. Yes, they would. And you have accounted for this. We have already asked for volunteers, said. Every colony on the frontier has been informed. They understand what we are asking. They have agreed. The chamber was utterly silent now. No one moved. No one spoke. You would sacrifice your own people as bait? Asked, and for the first time his voice was not mocking. It was something closer to awe. We would ask them to endure, corrected. Not to die. The occupation will be temporary. When the supply lines fall, their frontline forces will collapse. We will liberate every colony. But yes, Commander, we are asking our people to suffer so that we can win. High Arbiter was silent for a long moment. His light pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. This is unprecedented, he finally said. The strategy is sound in theory, but it requires trust. It requires patience. It requires us to watch the enemy advance and do nothing. It requires faith, said. Faith that losing battles is not the same as losing wars. Turn to the chamber. We will vote. Allow the humans to lead our defense or follow traditional tactics. The choice is yours. The vote took 3 hours. Arguments raged. Species threatened to withdraw from the consortium entirely. But in the end, the motion passed by a single vote. Observer had cast the deciding voice. Admiral left the chamber with new authority and a weight on her shoulders that could crush planets. Doctor walked beside her in silence. Far across the galaxy, aboard the UES Indomitable, Captain Park received his orders. Make them chase you, the message read. Make them hungry, then starve them. Read the orders twice. Then he smiled a cold, terrible smile. The hunt was about to begin. 3. The war began with fire and screaming. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable and watched the fleet tear through the system. His tactical display showed hundreds of enemy ships, each one larger than his own vessel. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never known fear. "Enemy fleet is engaging the outer defense platforms," Lieutenant reported. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly on his console. "Platforms are falling. Estimated time to total system loss, 4 hours." Nodded slowly. "Pull our ships back to the secondary position. Do not engage." Hesitated. "Sir, the defense platforms are requesting support. They are asking us to help." "I know what they are asking." His voice was quiet but firm. "Pull back, that is an order." The human fleet retreated. Behind them, the defense platforms fought bravely and died alone. Watched each light go dark on his display and felt every death like a knife in his chest. But he did not change his orders. This was the plan. This was the only way. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched in horror. Commander slammed his 4 fists against his podium and roared with fury. "They are running, the humans are running. I told you this would happen." High Arbiter flickered with concern. "Admiral, your forces are retreating without engaging. Explain." Admiral stood calmly before the assembly. She had not slept in 30 hours. Dark circles surrounded her eyes, but her voice remained steady. "The plan requires us to lose the first battles," she said. "We discussed this. We voted on this." "Discussion is different from watching it happen," a delegate from the collective shouted. "People are dying. Systems are falling." "Yes," agreed. "They are, and more will fall before this is over." Doctor stepped forward with a data pad. "We have confirmed that the fleet has advanced 17 light-years past their original border. They have committed 60% of their total military strength to the invasion. Their supply lines now extend across 3 sectors. They are taking everything," growled, "and you celebrate this." "I do not celebrate," replied sharply. "I observe. There is a difference. They are doing exactly what we predicted. They are pushing deep. They are stretching thin. Every system they capture is another system they must supply, defend, and control." Observer raised a silver hand. "The mathematics support the Admiral's position. Logistics are approaching critical extension. However, the political cost of continued retreat may be higher than we anticipated." "Political cost?" Eyes flashed with something cold. "You want to talk about political cost? Let me tell you about cost." She activated her own display. Images appeared in the air above the council chamber. Human faces, families, children. "These are the people of the system," said. 12 million humans. They knew they were coming. We gave them the option to evacuate. Do you know what they chose?" No one answered. "They chose to stay. They chose to be occupied. They chose to suffer under control so that our plan could work." His voice cracked slightly, but she pushed through. "Do not speak to me about cost. I know the cost. I carry it with me every moment." The chamber fell silent. Even Commander had no response. Far away, on the conquered world of Prime, a commander named stood in the ruins of a human city. His species was tall and covered in black armor that grew from their own bodies. Their eyes glowed red. Their voices sounded like grinding metal. "The humans fled like animals," reported to his superiors. "They offered almost no resistance. Their military is weak. Their people are soft. This war will be over within the year." His superiors agreed. The Dominion had conquered 100 species across 10,000 years. Humans were nothing special. Humans were prey. Ordered his troops to establish occupation protocols. The human civilians were gathered in camps. The infrastructure was seized. The resources were claimed. But something bothered, something he could not explain. The humans in the camps did not look defeated. They looked like they were waiting. Back on the Indomitable, Captain Park reviewed the latest intelligence reports. Lieutenant sat beside him, scrolling through enemy communications. "They think we are cowards," said. "Their messages are full of mockery. They call us prey animals." Smiled slightly. Good, let them think that. How can you smile? We have lost 4 systems. Millions of people are under occupation. I smile because they are making the mistake we need them to make. Leaned back in his chair. Have you ever studied Earth history, Lieutenant? Some, not much. There was a general named. He faced an invasion by one of the greatest military forces ever assembled. The enemy was confident. The enemy was strong. The enemy expected quick victory. What happened? Retreated, he gave up cities, he gave up territory, he let the enemy march deeper and deeper into his country. The enemy captured the capital city and thought they had won. Smile grew colder. Then winter came, and the enemy's supply lines collapsed and destroyed them. Was quiet for a moment. We are doing the same thing. We are doing the same thing, confirmed. Except instead of winter, we have something better. We have patience. On Axiom Prime, Admiral entered a private meeting with Observer. The diplomat had requested the conversation personally, away from the chaos of the council chamber. You are losing support, said without greeting. Many species are demanding that command be transferred to the. They want direct action. Direct action will destroy us, replied. I know, but politics does not always care about mathematics. Studied her with large, dark eyes. Tell me something, Admiral. How do humans live with this? How do you sacrifice your own people and continue to function? Was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was tired. We do not live with it, we carry it. Every commander who has ever sent soldiers to die carries those deaths forever. We do not forget. We do not move on. We simply keep walking because stopping means the deaths were meaningless. That sounds like torture. It is, met the diplomat's eyes directly. But that is what leadership costs. If you are not willing to carry the weight, you should not give the orders. Nodded slowly. I will continue to support you in the council, but you must give us something, some sign that the plan is working, some hope. They have extended their supply lines by 40% in the last month, said. Their fuel consumption is exceeding their delivery capacity. In 3 more months, they will be unable to sustain offensive operations. 3 months? Can the coalition hold together that long? It will have to. The weeks passed slowly. They continued to advance. More systems fell. More people were captured. The council grew more and more restless. Commander demanded daily briefings. He questioned every decision. He called a coward to her face. She accepted his insults without reaction. Doctor spent her time analyzing communications. She learned their language. She studied their culture. She began to understand how they thought. They are not evil, she told one night. They simply believe that strength is the only virtue. They respect power and nothing else. In their minds, our retreat proves we are inferior. And when their supply lines collapse, smiled grimly. They will not know how to react. Their entire philosophy will be challenged. An enemy that cannot be beaten by strength alone is something they have never faced. On the Indomitable, Captain continued his dance with death. His fleet engaged in small skirmishes, never committing fully, always pulling back before real damage could be done. They called him a coward. They mocked him in their communications. They chased him across the stars, hungry for a real battle. They never realized they were being led. Lieutenant monitored their supply convoys. He mapped their fuel depots. He tracked every ship, every cargo container, every delivery route. The net is ready, he reported too. Hidden fleets are in position across 73 systems. We are just waiting for the order. Looked at the tactical display. The fleet was deep inside consortium territory now. They had conquered 24 systems. They were 2 weeks away from the core worlds. They thought victory was certain. They had no idea they were already dead. 3 more weeks, said. Let them push a little deeper. Let them stretch a little thinner. Then we end this. Nodded. The waiting is the hardest part. The waiting is everything, replied. Any fool can attack. Any fool can fight, but waiting until the perfect moment, watching your enemy destroy themselves through their own arrogance, that is the hardest thing a commander can do. He turned back to the stars. 3 more weeks, he repeated, and then the galaxy will see what humans really are. 6 months into the war, they believed they had already won. Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the tactical display with satisfaction. 24 conquered systems glowed beneath his control. The consortium was crumbling. The humans were running like frightened animals. Supreme Commander, his aide reported, our forward fleets report they are within 2 weeks of the core worlds. The consortium capital will fall before the end of the month. Allowed himself a moment of pride. He had led the greatest invasion in history. His name would be remembered for 1,000 generations. And our supply situation, he asked, though he already knew the answer. Functioning within acceptable parameters. Fuel reserves are lower than optimal, but the convoys continue to arrive. We have enough for the final push. Then push, turned to face his command staff. I want the human flagship found and destroyed. Captain Park has humiliated us long enough with his cowardly retreats. Find him, kill him, bring me his head. The order went out across the fleet. Every ship began hunting for the Indomitable. They were so focused on their prey that none of them noticed the shadows gathering behind them. On Axiom Prime, the Galactic Council was in chaos. This is madness, Commander roared, his 4 arms raised in fury. They are at our doorstep. We must fight now, or we will have nothing left to defend. High Arbiter flickered with anxiety. Admiral, the situation grows desperate. Many delegates are losing faith in your strategy. We need results. Admiral stood at her position, surrounded by hostile eyes. 6 months of retreat had cost her nearly all political support. Only Observer and a handful of others still defended her. The trap is set, said calmly. We move tomorrow. You have been saying this for weeks, a delegate shouted. Always tomorrow, always wait. Meanwhile our people suffer under occupation. Yes, they suffer, and their suffering will end tomorrow. The chamber fell into angry murmurs. No one believed her anymore. She had cried wolf too many times. Activated her communication device. Captain, please report. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the bridge of the Indomitable. Captain Park appeared, tired but alert. Admiral, all units are in position. 73 strike teams hidden across supply routes. We are ready to execute Operation Distant Thunder on your command. Commander laughed bitterly. Hidden fleets, strike teams, you expect us to believe this. We have seen nothing but retreat for 6 months. You were not supposed to see anything, replied coldly. Neither were that was the point. Lieutenant appeared beside his captain. I have monitored every enemy communication for the past 6 months. They have no idea we are there. They believe we are broken. They believe they have won. Display current supply network, ordered. The hologram changed, showing hundreds of thin lines stretching across the conquered territory. Fuel convoys, food transports, ammunition shipments, the lifeblood of the invasion. These are their supply routes, explained. Every line represents thousands of ships carrying resources to the front. Without these supplies, the fleet cannot fight. Their weapons need ammunition. Their engines need fuel. Their soldiers need food. She pressed another control. Red dots appeared along the supply lines, dozens of them, hidden in asteroid fields behind gas giants inside nebulae. These are our strike teams. 40,000 ships hidden for the past 4 months. They never saw them. They were too busy chasing Captain's fleet. The chamber grew quiet. Even was staring at the display with wide eyes. You hid 40,000 ships, whispered, without anyone knowing. We hid them in places they considered unimportant, Doctor explained. They were so focused on conquest that they never secured their rear. They assumed no one would be foolish enough to let them advance this far. Because no one has ever been that foolish, said slowly, except you. Except us, agreed. They expected us to fight like every other species, meet strength with strength, honor with honor. They did not expect us to think differently. She turned to face the full council. The fleet is 200 light-years from their homeland. Their supply lines are stretched to the breaking point. They have committed everything to this invasion. Everything. Her voice hardened. And in the next 6 hours we will cut them off completely. How asked? We will not attack their warships. We will attack their convoys, every fuel tanker, every supply freighter, every ammunition transport. We will destroy their ability to sustain the invasion. And the fleet itself. The fleet will starve. Eyes were cold. 16,000 warships stranded without fuel, without food, without ammunition. They will have 2 choices, surrender or die. The chamber erupted in noise, but this time it was different. This time there was hope in the voices. Commander stepped forward. His expression had changed. The mockery was gone, replaced by something that might have been respect. If this works, he said slowly, it will be the greatest military victory in galactic history. It will work, replied. It already has. The defeated themselves the moment they decided to chase us. We simply waited for them to finish. She raised her hand. Operation Distant Thunder, all units, execute. Across 73 star systems, hidden fleets emerged from their concealment. On a small moon behind the system, Commander Shin led the first strike team. Her ships rose from the crater where they had hidden for 3 months. All ships target the convoy at bearing 773, she ordered. Weapons free. The supply convoy never saw them coming. 20 cargo ships, carrying enough fuel to power 100 warships for a month, vanished in fire and light. Similar scenes repeated across the galaxy. Strike teams hit convoys, fuel depots, repair stations, communication relays. Every target had been selected months in advance. Every attack was precisely coordinated. On his flagship, Supreme Commander received the first reports with confusion. Supply convoy destroyed in Sector 7. Supply depot attacked in Sector 12. Communication relay lost in Sector 4. Pirates asked, resistance fighters. Unknown, Supreme Commander, but the attacks are spreading. We are receiving reports from across our entire supply network. Felt the first cold touch of fear. He pulled up the tactical display and watched as red warning lights began appearing throughout his territory. 1 attack could be ignored. 10 attacks were concerning, but this was hundreds, thousands. His entire supply infrastructure was being dismantled in real time. Where did they come from? He demanded. We control this space. There is no enemy force behind us. His aide's voice shook. It appears there was, Supreme Commander. They were hiding, waiting. For 6 months, they hid for 6 months. Yes, Supreme Commander. Stared at the display. He watched his supply lines die. He watched his victory turn to ash. The humans, he said slowly. This was the humans. Yes, Supreme Commander. Far across the battlefield, Captain Park received the damage reports with grim satisfaction. 73% of supply infrastructure destroyed in the first wave. More attacks coming. Lieutenant could not hide his smile. It worked. It actually worked. Of course it worked, stood from his command chair. Now comes the hard part. Open a channel to the flagship. Sorry. They need to know what is happening. They need to understand. His expression was hard, and they need to hear it from us. The channel opened. Supreme Commander appeared on screen, his red eyes burning with rage. You growled. You cowardly human, you have been hiding in shadows like vermin. I have been waiting, corrected. There is a difference. Your tricks mean nothing. My fleet is the mightiest force in the galaxy. We will crush you. Your fleet is stranded. spoke calmly without emotion. Your fuel reserves will last approximately 3 weeks, your ammunition perhaps 2, your food supplies 1 month at reduced rations. You are 200 light-years from home with no way to get there. His face twisted with fury. We will fight. We will take what we need from the conquered systems. Those systems have been evacuated. We moved the critical supplies months ago while you were busy chasing me. Leaned forward slightly. You thought you were hunting us, Commander. You were wrong. You were being led. The Supreme Commander was silent for a long moment. What do you want? He finally asked. Surrender, complete and unconditional. Withdraw your forces from all occupied territories. Release all prisoners. Return to your own space. Do not surrender. We would rather die. That is your choice. His voice was cold. But know this, we are not here to destroy you. We are here to win. If you choose death, we will give it to you. But if you choose life, we will accept your surrender and let you go home. Why would you show mercy to an enemy? Was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. Because the point of war is not to kill. The point of war is to make peace possible. We want this war to end. We want the killing to stop. And we want you to remember that humans defeated you not through cruelty, but through patience. He closed the channel. On Axiom Prime, the Galactic Council watched the entire exchange in stunned silence. High Arbiter, a being who had lived for 9,000 years, spoke in a voice that trembled. They are not hunting us anymore. Admiral closed her eyes. No, she said quietly, they are not. The fleet began to die slowly. Not in battle, not in fire and glory. They died the way a great beast dies when it cannot find food. They weakened, they slowed, they turned on each other. Captain Park watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as the greatest military force in known history collapsed from within. His tactical display showed 16,000 warships scattered across conquered space, and every single one of them was running out of time. Cruiser cluster at Sector 9 is fighting with their own supply ships, Lieutenant reported. They are trying to take fuel by force. And the supply ships? Destroyed in the fighting, neither side got the fuel. Nodded slowly. This was happening everywhere. The commanders were proud. They were aggressive. They had never faced a situation where fighting made things worse, so they fought anyway and they made everything worse. Continue monitoring, ordered. Do not engage unless they threaten civilian populations. On Axiom Prime, the Galactic Council watched the same data with expressions that ranged from shock to horror to something like fear. High Arbiter floated at the center of the chamber, his light pulsing rapidly. He had lived for 9,000 years. He had seen wars and empires and the rise and fall of civilizations, but he had never seen anything like this. They are destroying themselves, he whispered. The humans did not defeat them. They simply created the conditions for self-destruction. Commander stood motionless at his podium. The warrior had spent his entire life believing that strength was everything. Meet your enemy. Face your enemy, crush your enemy. These were the principles he had built his existence around. Now he watched the mightiest fleet in the galaxy tear itself apart, and he did not understand. This is not war, he said slowly. This is something else. Admiral stood calmly amid the chaos. She had not slept in 3 days. Her uniform was wrinkled. Her eyes were red with exhaustion, but her voice remained steady. This is exactly war, she replied. This is what war looks like when you fight to win instead of fighting for glory. You feel no pride in this, no satisfaction. Turn to face the commander. Pride. Commander, I have just orchestrated the starvation of 16,000 ships. Millions of soldiers are dying right now, not in battle, but from hunger and thirst and desperation. Some of them are killing each other for the last drops of water. Her voice cracked slightly. I feel no pride. I feel sick. But I also know that this was the only way to save our people. So I carry the weight and I keep moving forward. Doctor stepped forward with a data pad. Admiral, the Supreme Commander is requesting communication. Put him through. The holographic display flickered to life. Supreme Commander appeared, and even through the distortion, his deterioration was visible. His black armor had dulled. His red eyes burned less brightly. He looked like a creature being eaten from within. Admiral said, his voice was different now. The arrogance was gone. Your captain offered terms, surrender in exchange for withdrawal. Those terms remain available. Many of my commanders refuse. They would rather die. That is their choice. Was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was almost gentle. I have fought for 300 years. I have conquered 47 species. I have never lost a single campaign. He paused. How did you know? How did you know we would chase you? Considered the question carefully. Because that is what we would have done, she said. Before we learned better, humans have spent our entire existence making the mistakes you just made. We attacked when we should have waited. We advanced when we should have retreated. We let our pride destroy us over and over again. And you learned from these mistakes. We learned slowly, painfully, over thousands of years and millions of deaths. His voice softened. They are not evil, Commander. You simply never had to learn these lessons. You were too strong. You always won, so you never discovered what we discovered. What is that? That strength alone is not enough. That patience is a weapon. That the greatest victory is the one that leaves room for peace. Absorbed her words in silence. Finally, he spoke. I will surrender, personally. Those commanders who refuse may do as they wish, but I will no longer lead them to pointless death. We accept your surrender. Your ships will be allowed to return home. Your soldiers will be treated with dignity. Your wounded will receive medical care. Why? Asked. We invaded your space. We conquered your worlds. We would have exterminated you if we could. Why show mercy? Met his eyes through the holographic display. Because mercy is how wars end. Cruelty is how wars continue forever. The channel closed. Across the battlefield, the news spread. The Supreme Commander had surrendered. The war was over, but not everyone accepted the decision. Captain Park led the counterattack against those who refused to yield. His fleet moved through the scattered forces like a surgeon's knife, precise and careful. Target their engines and weapons, ordered. Disable, not destroy. Leave their life support intact. Lieutenant relayed the orders, then turned to his captain with confusion. Sir, they are still shooting at us. They are trying to kill us. Why are we protecting their lives? Because killing them accomplishes nothing. Watched as another warship went dark, disabled but not destroyed. They are already beaten. Slaughtering them now would only create martyrs. It would give their children a reason to hate us forever. Some would say they deserve death. Perhaps, but we are not fighting for what they deserve. We are fighting for what we want. Turned to face his young officer. We want peace, Lieutenant, real peace. And you do not build peace on mountains of corpses. The battle continued for 3 more days. Ships surrendered. Ships were disabled. A few fought to the end and were destroyed, but far fewer than anyone expected. On Axiom Prime, the Galactic Council watched the final stages of the war with a mixture of relief and something deeper, something that made them uncomfortable. Observer approached Admiral as the last ships were being escorted to internment zones. Your species is terrifying, the diplomat said quietly. Looked at him with tired eyes. I know. You defeated the greatest military power in the galaxy without ever fighting a major battle. You turned their own strength against them. You made them destroy themselves. Yes. And now you show them mercy. You could exterminate them. You could reduce their civilization to ashes. They would be helpless to stop you, but instead you let them go home. Was silent for a moment. Do you know why humans are so good at war? She finally asked. Because you practiced on each other. No, because we know what war costs. His voice was heavy with exhaustion and something that might have been grief. We have buried our children in mass graves. We have watched cities burn. We have seen entire generations destroyed by conflict. We know, better than any species in this galaxy, how terrible war truly is. She turned to face them directly. That is why we try so hard to be kind, because we know what happens when kindness fails. We have lived it. We carry those memories in our blood, in our culture, in every story we tell. Humans are dangerous because we understand suffering, and we will do almost anything to prevent it. Studied her with large, dark eyes. That is either the most hopeful thing I have ever heard, he said slowly, or the most frightening. It is both, replied. That is what being human means. High Arbiter called the council to order for the final vote. The war was officially over. They would be allowed to return to their territory. Occupied colonies would be liberated. Prisoners would be exchanged. But before the vote, spoke directly to the human delegation. We have lived among the stars for eons, he said, his light pulsing slowly. We thought we knew war. We thought we understood conflict. But we were children, playing with toys we did not comprehend. The ancient being turned to face Admiral. The humans have shown us something today. They have shown us that war is not about strength or honor or glory. War is about cost. And the species that truly understands cost will always win, because they will always be willing to pay prices that others cannot imagine. He paused. We are grateful and we are afraid. Both feelings are appropriate. The vote passed unanimously. The war was over. But something had changed in the galaxy. Every species present understood that the balance of power had shifted. The infant species, the newcomers, the children playing with toys they did not understand, had proven themselves to be something else entirely. They had proven themselves to be survivors, beings who had crawled through hell and emerged carrying wisdom written in blood. And that made them the most dangerous species in the known universe. 1 year after the war ended, the galaxy was still learning how to breathe again. Captain Park stood on a hill overlooking a field of white stones. Each stone marked a grave. Each grave held someone who had volunteered to be occupied, someone who had chosen to suffer so that the plan could work. The memorial was quiet. Wind moved through the grass. Somewhere a bird was singing. 12,000, Lieutenant said softly, standing beside his former captain. 12,000 people died under occupation, starvation, disease, execution for resistance. Nodded slowly. I know the number. How do you carry it? I do not carry it. I am crushed by it every day. His voice was hollow. But I keep walking because stopping would mean their sacrifice was meaningless. They died believing in the plan. They died believing we would win. I owe them the decency of continuing to live. Was silent for a long moment. I received my new assignment, he finally said. Training position. They want me to teach allied species about human tactics. Will you accept? Yes, but I am not sure I am the right person. I am not a philosopher. I am just a tactical officer. Turned to face his young friend. That is exactly why you are the right person. The galaxy does not need more philosophers. They need people who understand the practical cost of war. You lived it. You felt it. You can teach them what victory actually means. Across the galaxy, on the station of Axiom Prime, Admiral accepted a new position. The Galactic Council had created a seat for her on the Military Advisory Board, the first time a human had ever held such authority. High Arbiter made the announcement personally. Admiral has demonstrated capabilities that exceed our understanding, the ancient being declared. Her strategic vision saved the consortium from destruction. Her wisdom prevented the war from becoming a genocide. She has earned this position through actions, not words. Stepped forward to accept the honor. She looked tired. The past year had aged her in ways that went beyond physical appearance. "I accept this position," she said, "but I have one condition." Flickered with surprise. "Name it." "Every species must have a voice in military decisions, even the, even the smallest. No one is too young or too weak to offer perspective." "Why?" "Because we were the once, we were dismissed, we were mocked, and we nearly lost the war because other species refused to listen to unfamiliar ideas." His voice hardened. "That cannot happen again. The next great strategy might come from a species that has been in space for only 10 years, or 1 year. We cannot afford to ignore anyone." The council voted. The condition was accepted. Doctor published her treatise 3 months later. She called it The Patience of Predators, Human Military Philosophy. It analyzed human warfare from the earliest tribal conflicts to the war, showing how humanity had developed its unique approach to conflict. The book became required reading across the consortium. Military academies that had existed for 10,000 years revised their curricula to include human thinking. Species that had considered themselves masters of war discovered they had much to learn, but took no pride in her success. She spent most of her time working with the Cultural Rehabilitation Program, helping the defeated species understand what had happened and how to move forward. "They are not monsters," she explained to a skeptical diplomat. "They are a proud people who lost for the first time in their history. They need to understand that defeat does not mean worthlessness, that losing can be the beginning of wisdom." "You sound like you feel sorry for them." "I feel sorry for everyone who goes through war. Winning and losing both leave scars." The themselves were changing. The Dominion had not collapsed, but its philosophy was evolving. A new generation of leaders emerged, ones who had witnessed the impossible defeat and wanted to understand how it happened. 1 year after the surrender, a diplomatic vessel arrived at Earth. It was the first official visit in history. The diplomat's name was. She was young by standards, barely 100 years old. Her black armor gleamed in the sunlight as she stepped onto human soil for the first time. The reception was tense. Many humans remembered the occupation. Many had lost family members to cruelty, but they had agreed to meet, to talk, to try. Spent her first day visiting a museum. She walked through halls filled with human history, staring at displays of ancient weapons, swords and spears and bows, rifles and cannons and bombs, weapons that humans had used to kill each other for thousands of years before they ever reached the stars. A child approached her. The girl was perhaps 8 years old, with dark hair and curious eyes. She looked up at the towering without fear. "Why are you looking at the old things?" the child asked. Considered the question. She had spent a year preparing for this diplomatic mission, studying human culture and history. But no preparation had her for this simple question from a small child. "I am trying to understand," she finally said. "I am trying to understand how something so small learned to be so dangerous." The child shrugged. "We just had a lot of practice." Stared at the girl for a long moment. Then she began to laugh. It was a strange sound, grinding and metallic, but it was genuine. "Yes," she said, "I suppose you did." 5 years after the war, Captain Park retired from military service. He had been offered promotions, honors, command of entire fleets. He refused them all. Instead, he became a teacher. He moved to a small colony world and began teaching history to children. The same children whose parents had lived through the occupation. The same children who had lost family members to the war. One day, a student raised her hand during a lesson about the conflict. "Captain," she asked, "why did not we destroy them when we had the chance? They hurt us. They killed our people. We could have wiped them out." Set down his lesson materials and looked at the young faces watching him. "Let me ask you a question first," he said. "What is the point of war?" The students exchanged confused glances. "To win," one boy suggested. "To protect our people," another offered. To destroy the enemy, a third said. Shook his head slowly. The point of war is to make war unnecessary. He moved to the window and looked out at the stars. We fight wars because we want peace. We endure suffering because we want suffering to end. If we had destroyed we would have won the war, but we would have created 1,000 years of hatred. Their children would have grown up wanting revenge. They would have rebuilt their fleets and come for us again. He turned back to face his students. Instead, we showed them mercy. We let them go home. We gave them the chance to change. And now, 5 years later, diplomats walk freely on human worlds, and human scientists work together. Children are taught that humans are not prey but partners. That takes longer, the original student said. Yes, it takes much longer. Patience is hard. Mercy is hard. But they are the only paths that lead somewhere other than endless war. Smiled gently. That is what your parents and grandparents died for. Not victory, not revenge. They died so that one day children like you would live in a galaxy where war is not necessary, where enemies can become friends, where we do not have to keep killing each other forever. The students were quiet. The lesson sank into them slowly, like water into dry soil. Outside the window, the stars burned bright and steady. Human ships traveled between them, alongside and in even vessels. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still tensions, still the possibility of future wars. But there was also something else, something new. There was hope. And somewhere in the great halls of Axiom Prime, the species of the Galactic Consortium remembered the day they had screamed in shock and fear. The day they had seen a human strategy. The day they had learned that the infant species, the newcomers, the children playing with toys they did not understand, had something to teach them after all. They had learned that the greatest weapon was not a ship or a bomb or a fleet. The greatest weapon was patience. And humans had been practicing for a very, very long time.